So let's start this thing by saying massive spoilers ahead. This will completely divulge the game's information to you, so if you haven't played it yet, for the love of all that is holy, go out and get it because you won't be disappointed. If you would like to watch a video over a mutant from the Metro Exodus game without spoilers, I will put a card up on screen. Alright, so everyone warned? Alright, so let's get to it. Side note, I have a little bit of hay fever going on, so I sound a little weird. I know, it's kind of annoying, trust me. Today, I have a collaboration with Max Powerplay. Been a while since this has happened. I think I must have been around 100 subs back then, but regardless, today we'll be taking a look at the story and lore behind Metro Exodus, while he will be covering a review of the game and did it stack up to everyone's expectations. So after the video, go check out his. Metro Exodus is set in Mother Russia in a post-apocalyptic scenario. The nuclear weapons fired upon Russia by the United States have irradiated most of the landscape, but biological weapons were dropped as well, turning local creatures as well as humans into complete and absolute monsters. Artyom has been living in the burnt-out husk of Moscow down in the metro to survive the fallout, but as time passes, it becomes clear this is no life for anyone to live. He then begins trying to make radio contact to leave the area, but unfortunately, he is met with only radio static during this time, as everyone around him is also convinced the world is dead. So, just last chance, we were getting into some mega spoilers here. Wouldn't want the game to be ruined for you, so 3, 2, 1. Eventually, however, Artyom learns that the reason he is not receiving any radio transmissions is due to a network of jammers in place to make the rest of the world believe that Moscow is a dead city, thus causing any would-be curious nations to stay away and not attack. Moscow essentially plays dead as not to be hit again by the weapons that completely annihilated their country. Artyom, of course, breaks the jammer and realizes that many cities and nations are out there and are talking, and that quite possibly the war still hasn't ended. At this point, the world is more alive and dead than you might imagine. From what it sounds like, if you were led to believe, the world is actually still in working order and Moscow was just laying low. Many believed that the nation was actually under enemy control, and those that were still alive out there were actually working for the enemy. But the reality of the situation was much more dire than people working for the enemy. In reality, all people seem to be the enemy. You begin your trek in the frozen waste after hijacking the Aurora and fending off troops that attempt to stop you in the process. After they fail because, plot armor in your Artyom, you push through the frozen wastes of Russia. Instead of finding a burnt-out husk of a nation, you instead find plenty of forests and clean air. Surely others would have survived out here, and it's about that time you run into a blockade run by cultist fanatics who almost destroy your train entirely. After fending off the cultists in the only way you know possible, knocking each and every one of them out, you continue on your journey throughout the region. You run into a lot of the same mutants with the exception of some new ones like the Tsarfish and the Humanimals. Eventually you lower the bridge and lo and behold, you finally get to leave the frozen waste. Also, your wife gets infected by a mystery gas melting her lungs. This particular portion of the game really shows just how beautiful these frozen wastes can actually be. With an idyllic radioactive lake in the background that hosts monsters I don't even want to think about, down to the snow-covered hills with all of them crawling with mutants. The fact is, this game is incredibly pretty, but alas, this is not the only location you will visit. The next place you visit is actually proposed by Miller. This crucial area you stop to make you realize how hard world societies have fallen. What is left of the government is held up in an ark made by the government in case exactly like what happened should come to pass. It's clear from the interactions that something is amiss with the place, but Miller is pretty gung-ho about it and checking it out. Upon your arrival, you enter an elevator and meet with the top officials of Moscow, or really what's left of them. The whole setting is quite ominous, and I suppose the phrase "time makes villains of us all" applies here. And that's because things are about to get way more fun. Because what you have actually stumbled across is a den of cannibals. After breaking out of your binds, hacking and slashing your way through to the point where it's probably a war crime, you run into the doctor who alludes that Anna's worsening cough and condition is actually something to be concerned about because even cannibals don't want to eat her. But she takes care of his squawk box pretty quickly so he doesn't get all of the information out. After this, you're off to an area that I imagine would be any Russian's kryptonite, considering they are more used to the cold than dry heat. The remnants of the Caspian Sea. Caspian Sea is an area where you would not want to take your family on their next vacation. Marauders, humanimals, snakes, barons forcing people into slavery. It's got all the makings of a complete psychopath's playground. As you enter the place, you run across what you haven't seen in quite some time, an actual working car. After knocking out the driver and taking his car because you need it more than him, you set off into the scorching wastes of sea-turned desert. After a myriad of meetups and fetch quests, quests, like getting the all-important maps used to figure out where the non-radioactive areas are, you finally take out the Baron and end his treachery. You end up jacking their water and diesel and continuing on your path of what some might call complete destruction. The look of the desert has never really been more inviting and also off-putting. The game sets it up to almost contrast with the wastes of Moscow with wide open areas and visible sight lines for miles, as well as raging dust storms. This gives you like a much needed reprieve from the first two games where it was only snow all the time and linear tunnels. Not to mention, you need an actual car to get around, which should give you an idea of how large this area actually is. However, with your resources secured and your maps found, you continue your journey to a place that almost makes you wonder why you keep on trucking. You and Alyosha are sent to scout out ahead and survey the terrain as Anna's lungs are melting faster than originally anticipated. It is assumed that the clean air will fix her, but I gotta tell you, as a biologist, that really doesn't solve any issues. You need like actual medicine. Anyhow, they enter what seems to be a peaceful forest and are immediately knocked out into a raging river below by a landslide. You are rescued by what I can only assume is a strong Nordic woman and sent on your way.
What's the matter? You can't stand the sight of a strong Nord woman on strong Nord crack.
This area hosts a rather interesting conundrum. Good moral people committing atrocities out of fear and necessity. Before getting to that, who are these people? Originally, the group seemed to have belonged to some sort of school, and after the bombs fell, the valley seemed to be spared. Their teacher instilled in them a noble way of thinking, telling them not to bully and basically communicate with one another, rather than turning to violence. However, as usual, humanity rears its ugly head. Upon bandits attacking, it seems that some of the students decided to go on the offensive, which, I'm just gonna be real with you here, that would kind of be my mindset as well. I guess I'm not getting the good ending. Some chose to stay back and not kill the surrendering bandits, while others decided to end the threat permanently, which they assumed would be better for the future. Again, pretty tough choice. This ended up causing a split in the group. Those that chose to kill became pirates, and most lamented their choice. The others were known as cowards and became the pioneers. The forest, once seeming to be a perfect place, is filled with these students, who some appear to have become more warlike through time, which is also pretty understandable, but also it has monsters lurking throughout, namely wolves and bears. But these are not your average wolves and bears. The bears are the size of houses, whereas the wolves are the size of cars. They patrol the areas quite regularly, and should you be caught out in the open, they will immediately begin trying to eat your face. The bear tries on several occasions, actually. Upon fighting the bear, you return back to the Aurora to be told that Anna is not doing so hot. The clean air did nothing, and any medicine found kind of along the way has done little to stop the progression of lung failure. Shockingly, clean air did nothing. Crazy, right? Miller is obviously pretty upset at Artyom and blames him for this, sarcastically calling him son. Considering my girlfriend's father, who will be my future father-in-law, #can relate. But a plan is devised, and it is determined that the crew needs two things: a snowplow for the Aurora and medicine for Anna. So, off to the dead city of Novosibirsk. And I just pronounced that correctly because I've heard it about 40 times in the last 2 days. This place seems to have been hit much harder than Moscow in some ways, as the radiation levels are, I believe they said 8 times as high. This makes sense, as it seems that a lot of the medicines were being made here, so of course it would be a prime target for attack. After making your way through the open streets and absorbing probably lethal doses of radiation, you make your way underground, where you are met with what seems to have been a full-scale war that took place. Nothing but skeletons as far as the eye can see. Eventually you meet what can be only assumed to be the last remaining person alive, a child. He directs you where to get the medicine for Anna, and you take off into the tunnels. As you make your way through them and into a building, you encounter a beast known as a blind one, which you know your boy is going to be making a video on that. You find the medicine and begin to fight the blind one in an attempt to get away. Now, for all you people who don't know about the Metro, you typically have two choices: a good ending or a bad ending. Based upon your choices, one of two things happens. When you swan dive out the window, you either die, but Anna lives, and she's pretty angry at you that you have died, or you survive and Miller finds you, injecting you with the green stuff to counteract the radiation. You are picked up by your crew, and they all give you blood to dilute the radiation levels in your body. I ended up getting the good ending personally, which is pretty cool, but it required a lot of people getting head injuries, so pro tip, if you would like the good ending, just knock out everyone you see, and if you would like the bad ending, just light it up, my guy. Overall, the game's story and visuals are nothing short of amazing. Yeah, I know that this thing was like in the Epic Game stores, and a lot of people seem to have been angered over it, but it really shouldn't affect you wanting to buy it, because man, I had an absolute blast with this this game. And to confirm that, I now throw you over to Max Powerplay on his channel, and there should be like a card on screen. He has constructed an in-depth review of the game. The man does good work. So if you're interested in a review, definitely go check him out, man. So that about wraps up the story and lore of Metro Exodus. Gotta be honest, I was a little outside my element with this one, as I usually focus more on the science behind things, but I would love to hear your opinions on this video in general. Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Did you think it was stupid? I'm sure there will be somebody that says that. It was fun to make, but I also sometimes feel like more could be done. But we get back into the science next week with a video over the alien necromorph from Dead Space 3, so keep an eye out for that. It's gonna be nice to start hitting Dead Space again. Also, Fallout is coming because I got a massive request after covering the Humanimals, because I believe that everybody kind of got reminded of ghouls about that. Anyhow, I will drop my Discord, Twitter, and Patreon links in the description if you would like to check out any of that, and as always, I would like to thank my patrons. At the scientist tier, we have RTM Chornage, and next up, It's Not a Spoon. Our residents are A. Laurentis and Oz Hickman. Next up, with their PhD in genetics, we have Allison Caspero, Andrew Lawson, Divine Whisper, and Laffy No Skill. Holding it down with their masters in biology, we have Adam Hartswick, Brendan Brotherton, Cameron Smith, Cough Syrup, Edgy McGee, Mr. Poyfish, Scott Grant, The Wren of Lies, The Otter Man, and Zervalian. And last but not least, with their bachelors in morphological sciences, we have Add to the List, Akigao Comics, Alex the Gun Guy, Anthony Charles West, Anthony Wolf, Captain Gasmask, Dustin Ellis, Eric Scott Gillies, Brute Eater, Professor Benneps, Riot, Russell McBride, Trixie Lulamoon, and Ulf Hednar 845719. Thank you guys. Alright, so I know I've been slacking on game nights as of late. It's just been really busy, I suppose, busy time of year. So let's get something going this weekend. I'll hit everybody up on Patreon. But anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see y'all in the next one.